Good afternoon. Welcome to Join the Dots. As I've said in my previous episodes, we're here to find the truth, and then we're going to use that truth to join the dots to logical conclusions. One of the logical conclusions today will be there will be nothing in the news tonight other than Trump's F word. That will be it. That's how the media works to deflect and distract you from what is a kinetic war in the Middle East and a consequential trade war between the US and China. No more so than was expanded upon by Tony from China Update. I do encourage you to go to China Update. Tony does a good description of what's happening at the moment. There is no agreement. The very tentative agreement that came out of London between the US and China is already almost in tatters. Okay, they are not giving the licenses for rare earth and magnet exports. The US obviously is saying you can't have the high-end chips. China is saying we want the high-end chips or you can't have your magnets. Either way, let's join the dots, not get distracted by the noise. What does it mean? Well, unfortunately, it means an awful lot of Western production, and not just US, but EU as well, is going to come to a grinding halt, or has the risk of coming to a grinding halt. And what does that mean? Well, that means companies are making less profit. And when they make less profit, the first thing they think of to reduce the costs to keep the profit and loss somewhat stable is staff. So either layoffs, furloughs, sackings, redundancies, it doesn't matter what it is, there will be less money coming into the households of people who work in these industries. And we're talking a lot of industries. What does that mean? Well, didn't I tell you we've got a mortgage problem or a housing crisis? I think I did. What effect does it have when hundreds of thousands, not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe up into millions within a few weeks, have no income, but they have a mortgage to pay? And the realtors and the real estate agents, depending on where you live, are already absolutely full to the gums of stock, inventory, with no one buying. And we're going into not a good time for house sales. July, August, September is a very quiet time. So what then happens? Well, if you join the dots, what then happens is that regrettably, people can't pay their mortgages. Some of them will be distressed. You would say, well, they just won't sell. They may not have a choice. So that's the financial consequences of what's going on. While tonight, all you will be fed on the media is Trump used the F word. He used the F word in connection with Israel and Iran, both breaking the so-called truce. So was there a truce? Was there a truce? Hasn't lasted long, has it? 24 hours. So was there even a truce? Are we getting the truth about truces? It gets more complicated. But if we join the dots on that issue, then we have to look at what consequences there will be. And they're not good. A lot of talk about the Straits of Hormuz being shut. Well, that makes no sense, because if Iran shuts that, it can't export its oil, and its oil all goes to China, and China will be very upset. So I can't see that happening. But hey, we live in a complicated world of simple madness. So there we are. Just today, I'm going to keep it short, but I want you to think through the consequences of the war between Iran and Israel becoming more, deeper, more structural, because they can't agree a truce. And I want you to think of the financial consequences of what's happening in China and between China and the US and EU. It is the EU involved as well now. Okay? It's not just a US-China issue. It's China versus the world, which regular clients of mine have known that I've been talking about China versus the world for the last 3 or 4 years, because that's how I perceive it. Okay, so let's cut it there. Please think through the consequences. Join the dots between a trade dispute, and house prices. Okay, because those dots will be joined if this extends beyond even a few months. Thank you very much for watching. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.